Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 3 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. If you have a story you'd like to submit to the pod, you can do so by email at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. Alright, on to today's Malicious Compliance stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Fat Donkey. Daily Mass and Confession at my Catholic high school, or how I kept myself and friends from any consequences of our troublemaking. Recently told this story in another thread and was told it would do well here. I was raised in a devout Roman Catholic family who sent myself and my siblings to Catholic-run schools from kindergarten through high school. For this to make sense, some basic understanding of Catholic religious doctrine is needed. I'll keep it brief. Catholics practice something called the Sacrament of Holy Confession. The belief is that if you confess your sins to a priest and truly repent for what you've done, the priest has the power to forgive your sins in the eyes of God. Most churches will have things called confessionals for this purpose, while some newer ones are small rooms with chairs. The classic confessional is like a small closet, with the priest sitting in a closet next to you, separated by a privacy screen. Usually confession will be held after a morning daily mass service. One or more priests will set up in the confessional, congregants will go in one by one and say their confession, etc. Now, the bond of the confessional is absolutely sacrosanct within the church. Think of it like lawyer-client privilege. A priest is never ever supposed to share anything they learned in the confessional, nor act on any information they learn. Priests have to be executed by their government for refusing to testify in a trial about something they hear in a confessional. If a priest is found to have broken this bond, he will be defrocked, basically kicked out of the priesthood, and could possibly even be excommunicated, kicked out of the entire church, shunned, rejected by any devout Catholic, etc. It's a big deal. So much so that the policy for priests is that even if they later learn something through normal means that they originally first learned in the confessional, they are not allowed to act on that information, lest it even give the impression to the person who confessed that the priest was breaking the bond of the confessional. This last part is important. Well, sophomore year, my Catholic high school had its administration taken over by the Salesians, a religious order of brothers and monks who are dedicated to educating children. Our new principal was a Salesian priest, and started holding daily mass in our campus chapel every morning before classes. He really encouraged folks to go. Despite his efforts, never really took off. Would just be the usual 1 to 2 super devout teachers, maybe a particularly religious student or so. Then one Monday morning, right after homeroom, we hear the not uncommon announcement over the PA. Will the following students report to the principal's office immediately? Most of the time this happened when those students were getting disciplined for some weekend shenanigans at a private school, so we could be punished for that sort of thing. Someone threw a raging kegger, someone's parents found out, called the school, and now everyone involved was getting punished. This is when I had my epiphany. Next Monday morning, I was at morning mass bright and early, right at the front of the line to go into the confessional afterwards. Sat down with Father Jim and confessed to him in great detail all the trouble I and my friends had gotten up to over the weekend. Where we went, who did what, and to whom. Everything. The first time I think he was kinda surprised, gave me some acts of contrition to perform, said the absolution, and sent me on my way. I think the first few times he was actually pleased with himself. I'm really starting to teach these kids. But I'm pretty sure that by midway through the semester, he'd caught on to what I was doing. Every now and then, he'd make a sly reference or crack a smile, but he couldn't stop me, laugh out loud. You see, by going and confessing everything we did over the weekend to our principal first thing Monday, I was putting all that info into the bonds of the confessional. Anything I told him there, Father would never be able to act on without risking serious consequences. If he got to his office and his first message was from my friend's mom, explaining how she'd caught us all drunk as skunks, smoking cigarettes in the alley behind her house, he could thank her for the info, but he couldn't punish us for it. because I'd already told him 20 minutes earlier all about it in the confessional. This tradition lasted all the way through senior year and graduation, served me and my friends well. Some other folks must have figured things out as time went on. By the time I graduated, the Monday mass sessions were always well attended, and Father had started doing them earlier to save time for all the confessions he was hearing before class. I don't know if it was me or Father that was guilty of the malicious compliance here. Did we play him by going to confession like he insisted, but for our own selfish reasons? Or did he play us, doing some 4D chess crap? I mean, after all, in just 2 years, he somehow managed to get dozens and dozens of high school students to start regularly attending mass before class, and going to confession weekly. Win-win? Laugh out loud. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called EmotionalDraw8755. It says, "That is freaking brilliant. Did you ever tell the other students your plan, or did they just figure it out themselves?" OP responded to this one and said, "I told my friend group, but never really passed it down to the lower classes. But it was a small school, and many of my friends had younger siblings who attended the same school, so I'm sure word got around." Another commenter down below called Ryugi said, "I'm not sure who won here, if he won getting you to participate, or if you won staying out of trouble. I guess it depends on whether or not he was more interested in punishing people for wrongdoing, or for getting people to participate in holy events. It sounds like maybe he wasn't angry, so I think maybe he won." OP responded and said, "Oh, Father Jim, not his real name, was a hell of a guy. I'm sure he wasn't angry. He almost certainly knew what I was doing, especially as time went on. And knowing him, my guess is he just looked on the good side. He was always a silver lining kind of guy. He was getting more kids engaged in the church. They were sitting in the pews on Monday, listening to the reading and gospel and sermon, etc. Even if they're there for the wrong reasons, hey, they're there, like selling a timeshare. They know the only reason you're in the sales pitch is to get the free trip, but regardless, they still have you in the room listening to the sales pitch." You know, OP, there's a few ways to look at this one. Let's look at it from the eyes of the priest. He was happy that you were understanding the difference between right and wrong. He was happy that you were in church and you were going there willingly. He was annoyed that you were gaming the system, but he would privately not care because you were punishing yourselves by getting up earlier to go to church in the morning. And you sat through the whole thing before doing your confession. I'd say the priest definitely won here, and you punished yourself. This story comes to us from My Brain is a Rental. I'll call your bluff and take the marks. When I was in high school, I wasn't very good at writing essays in English. I knew all the concepts, but flushing out a few pages of BS wasn't something I could do in 45 minutes of class time. For a few weeks, we had a student teacher completing her practical block. Knowing that kids circle, substitute, and student teachers like sharks, she didn't take any crap, but overcompensated, and more than a few kids in my class checked out or outright antagonized her. This just made her more hostile to the smart butt teenagers we were. For me, checkout was when I tried to answer a question about the use of a very specific term in a poem about World War I soldiers. The author used wheeled chair instead of wheelchair. I put my hand up and gave some interpretation that made sense, and I was always told there's no wrong answers in these sorts of discussions. As a reward for participating, I was treated to a fairly harsh, "No, you're wrong," noted. So we have to complete an essay on what we've learned the last few weeks, and the question is along the lines of, how did the author make you feel when reading the text? Me, having mentally checked out of English class, not being good at that sort of thing, and being the crappy kid I was, wrote out a couple of paragraphs summarizing the message of the text and saying that I didn't feel anything when reading it. The next Monday we get our essays back and I've got a 5 out of 25. More than I thought, so those 2 paragraphs must have been pretty good. The practical teacher takes me outside and goes on about how she's disappointed and I could have done better, and how everyone else wrote 2 or 3 pages, but I didn't get half a page done. It all seemed pretty disingenuous to me because she hadn't shied away from telling me or anyone else when we were wrong. She asked why I wrote that, and I replied that I genuinely didn't have an emotional reaction to it. Why lie? She then says I have the choice to either take the fail or rewrite the essay next class. Okay, I'll take the grade. No point wasting time. Her face dropped a bit and she took a while to reply. Really? Are you sure? Yep, I'm no good at this sort of thing, remember? I didn't get it right in class, so why would that change overnight? Defeated, she sent me back to class and went next door for a few minutes. A while later, I was called out again to speak with my actual teacher. She asked me why I didn't think I could do better, and what didn't I understand about the question. After talking for a while, she said that I will have to retake the essay with a new text and question. One that was worded so I couldn't just say, I didn't. In the end, I wrote around 2 pages and passed just. The practical teacher was there for another 2 weeks or so, and I noticed a few things. First, she didn't react with outright contempt when someone gave an answer that wasn't what she wanted. Second, she didn't try to play a game of wits against any more self-sabotaging teenagers. Bonus story about my actual teacher, she was younger and really nice, but now that I'm older, I think she was one of those sensitive but naive sort of people. We had to come up with a TV pilot episode and read it out to the class. One kid read out the first episode of Burn Notice word for word. Top marks and a heap of praise. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called DIY Lobotomy. It says, honestly, the assumption that emotional reactions to a piece of writing are universal has messed up reading and writing for me more than once. Like, I don't feel anything when I read this excerpt, but apparently that's wrong and impossible, and everyone else does, so it's my fault somehow. Not everyone interprets things the same way. Refusing to accept that does nobody any good. Another user down below called Maladdicted said, as someone who has tutored students and had to mentor at work, there's nothing more devastating than seeing someone lose interest in what you're trying to teach them, and knowing you caused it. I'm passionate about language and literature, and I try to meet people where they are. If all you want to read and write about are comic books, let's talk about them. If you interpret something differently from me, I want to know why so I can see it the way you do. I might enjoy it more that way. If I said something to a learner that caused them to immediately stop trying and give up, I don't know what I'd do. Yeah, this practical teacher sounds interesting. It's like they follow the no wrong answers except yours approach to teaching. It does sound like they learned a lesson though that being harsh isn't always the best way to get results. Props to the regular teacher for stepping in and handling it with a lot more care. This story comes to us from Galway Guy 24. The shark landlord got more than he bargained for. Years ago, I moved into a new apartment while studying abroad. The landlord was, well, let's just say he was a real shark. The guy had a dozen properties rented out to students and a reputation for squeezing every last penny out of his tenants. By coincidence, I ended up dating a fellow student who happened to rent from him in the next building over, and who moved out 6 months in. So I had advance warning of what to expect on move-out day. When she moved out, she had broken a single plate and lost a fork, so somehow got charged for an entire new matching set of plates and cutlery. She even replaced the plate and fork herself, but that wasn't good enough for Mr. Sharklord. No, he insisted on billing her for a full brand new set. Of course, she learned later from her ex-flatmate that he only replaced the missing items and pocketed the difference. Imagine the profit accumulating over the years over dozens of apartments when for every student you charge the price of a new set, but actually only buy one replacement for one fork here, one glass there, pocketing the difference. Not just shady, but utterly petty. Now, when myself and my best friend had moved in, Landlord proudly tells us about the brand new mattresses in our rooms. A year later, when my friend was moving out, we did a massive deep clean, left the place sparkling, and made sure to replace anything missing. But of course, during the inspection, the landlord found issues. Surprise, surprise, he deducted and withheld my friend's entire deposit, mostly on the basis of the mattress being slightly stained and needing replacement. My friend was understandably fuming, but then we had a thought. If he was charging us for a new mattress, then my friend had technically just paid for this one. So technically, it was his. And equally technically, it just wouldn't be considerate to leave personal belongings cluttering up the landlord's apartment after he moved out, would it? Moving out means moving out. He couldn't take the mattress on the plane, obviously, so we hauled it down to a nearby park where some local homeless people hang out, and donated it. Fast forward a few days, I'm still in the apartment and about to move out shortly. My friend's already gone, and I hear the landlord arrive to show the room to a new tenant. I hear the bedroom door, and then rage. Where the F is the mattress? I have to effing buy a new one? I almost lost it right there, but I held my composure, played dumb, and listening to him fume. And a few days later, when it was my turn to leave, oh, I knew I was getting nothing back from my deposit, and I too was going to take all of my personal belongings with me. So I took everything I had paid for, the mattress, plates, cutlery, glasses, even the light bulbs. The friendly neighborhood hobos made out like kings. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Rod Niedermeyer. It says, I had a similar landlord try this crap with me. I wrote a letter and gave it to an attorney who mailed it for me using his letterhead. He charged me a nominal fee. Landlord instantly backed down and offered me $1,000. Don't F with attorneys. Well, OP, it sounds like you guys really stepped up to the plate and you maliciously forked over the landlord. It's nice to see it happen to a jerk, and I'm sure he'll get more of what's coming to him soon. You really did pull the rug and the mattress right out from underneath him. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.